Hello and welcome to the Korean Beauty Show podcast. I'm your host, Lauren Lee, K-beauty expert, longtime resident of Seoul, South Korea, and your guide to everything you need to know to perfect your own Korean skincare routine. On today's episode, I want to talk about a new trend that I've been noticing, and that is sensory beauty. So I firmly believe that skincare is now in the era of sensory beauty. I've been seeing this more and more trending, particularly on social media, and particularly around certain textures. I think jelly is a really prime example of the genre, and also, products that have encapsulated ingredients and maybe little bubbles and things like that in them. So there is a very good reason, I think, why a lot of brands are tapping into this trend at the moment. And that is that studies actually show that sensory perception, so color, scent, texture, the feel of a product determines how it's perceived and evaluated. And I came across an article by a group called the Douglas Group. And what they said is all of that, how the product feels, looks, smells, play a central role in the purchasing decision. So when customers experience cosmetics in particular, they build an emotional connection through their sensory experiences, and it begins the first time they try it and then continues with repeated use. And I think that this is another really key reason why so many brands still continue to use fragrance in their products. I know that fragrance has, gone through different waves and different, trends over the years. It falls in and out of favor. A couple of years ago, there was a really big skinfluencer on YouTube called Beauty by Hiram. And I remember he was really responsible for a lot of people giving up fragranced products and, not choosing not to purchase them. He was very, very anti-fragrance. And that kind of kickstarted this whole new trend of fragrance-free. And there are people that have fragrance allergies. That is a fact. But they make up a much smaller percentage of the population than you would assume. Between 2 to 5% of the general population will have a true fragrance allergy that kind of needs to be avoided by not using fragrance in their cosmetics. Now, there are a whole subset of other people that just don't like fragrance for whatever reason. Some people say that it gives them a headache, that it triggers, unpleasant reactions and all of this kind of thing. And I totally understand that. I remember my mum, this is such a random story, but back in the day, she used to have this perfume. It was an Issey Miyake one. And whenever she would spray it and we would get in the car and I'd have to ride in the car with her, it made me feel bilious. I just wanted to vomit. And I would always beg her. I was like, Mum, please, can you just not wear that perfume just today? So I get it. Fragrance can be like that for some people. But I think that there's a reason that so many brands use it, and that is because of how important it is to the sensory perception of a product. And one thing that I hear a lot when I talk to people that are using products that are unfragranced or whatnot is, they still have issues with the way it smells. So a common complaint that you will hear about unfragranced products is that it smells plasticky. And there's a very good reason for that. It's not to do with the container or the jar. It's actually to do with the natural scent of the raw ingredients. And some raw ingredients in cosmetics, they just don't smell that good. So I have used a lot of products from different K-beauty brands over the years because K-beauty really lent into fragrance-free for a while there. And the raw smell of the natural ingredients was just so off-putting that no matter how good the product was, I just couldn't use it again. Ciora's had this cleansing milk that I recall having an almost visceral reaction to. I just couldn't. I struggled so badly to get through it. And that was because it was unscented. So I think there are definitely downsides to going unscented as well. It's achievable and it's fine with some products. And then with others, it just does not work. And we found that even when we were, making our own skincare products for Jellicoe. So there were some products that obviously, well, I mean, maybe it's not obvious. When you get products from a lab, oftentimes what they will do is they will send you the unscented version. Not always. If you've got a strong preference for a particular scent that you want, I've had, first samples come to me with the scent in them, but sometimes they will send them through unscented and it just doesn't feel right. It just doesn't smell right. We have definitely had products like that I'm like, no, we just cannot release it smelling like this. It's just not going to work. And then conversely, I've had other products that I'm like, you know what? We just don't need to add fragrance to this. There is enough going on with the formula, with the texture, with the packaging and whatnot, that people are not going to miss it. I think it also depends on what step of your routine that you are using the fragrance in as well. So the finishing steps like moisturizer, sleeping mask, night cream, I think it plays a much more important role than maybe some of the middle steps like serum, for example. So I think that is something that people may not realize, particularly if you haven't smelt a lot of raw ingredients, how bad some of them do smell. And it's to the point where it would really get in the way of you actually wanting to use the product, which is not ideal either. So I think sensory marketing of products as well is a lot of brands are really, really leaning into it. Not only scent, but visualization. So, a lot of people are making use of all of these kind of things when they're doing their marketing to kind of like get a really strong reaction from viewers as well. And there's a proven science behind that. The Harvard Business Review has reported that the science behind sensory marketing is sort of stepping to the fore. More people are looking into what it is, things that trigger people. And speaking of triggering people, so we've been trying a few different things in our marketing. And one of the things we did was like a croissant, just an ordinary croissant, and then like a glazed croissant afterwards. And we were kind of saying, this is your skin without our moisturizer and this is your skin with the moisturizer. And a couple of people in the comments were like, ew, that's gross. I don't want to think of my skin as like a flaky croissant. And I'm like, it really does elicit a reaction, whether good or bad in people. You really kind of need to get the senses going to have that kind of reaction. So I think the biggest texture that I'm seeing at the moment play out is jelly, and obviously I am looking out for it as well because our brand concept was built around that. But I think it taps in to, it's not only us that are using it, many brands are using jelly at the moment, but there are so many things that it ticks off that really get people sort of excited to use the products and talking about them. The number one most obvious one is that it's very tactile. So that gel texture that spreads like water the moment that you apply it, like the melting jelly. I think a lot of people that use gel-based products will tell you that they feel cooling and refreshing and soothing. So that works really, really well for a lot of specific product types. They are also really good for the skin because on the one hand, they are very moisturizing, but they minimize the oil burden in the skin, and not everyone can take oils in their skin, particularly if you are, a little bit oilier combination or whatnot. You might not want as much oil in your routine as, say, someone like me that has very, very dry skin. The visual effects that you can have, not only with jelly, but anything in like that clear gel glossy formula, I think just cannot be understated. Capsules we're seeing a lot of at the moment on social media, encapsulation within the product texture itself, so you can actually see the tiny little beads in the formula. And I think the other thing is that social media has sort of catapulted this to the next level, and we're seeing that viral effect of, people applying these kind of products, and it just really appeals to people online. So I think that content at the moment, particularly in 2025, is king. It's all about short form content and grabbing attention. And there are a lot of pitfalls and problems that I have with this particular style of content that we might leave for another day, because honestly I could rant for a half an hour just about that. But let's put that to the side for 1 second and just focus on, I guess, how this trend has really been brought on by this kind of marketing that people are doing, this attention grabbing kind of thing. So many products I think are encapsulating this trend at the moment. So Daisic just recently introduced their Chewing Glow Pop, which is in a little Jello-shaped jar. And I remember Tony Moly did one of them a couple of years ago. It was so cute. I bought it. The product itself was rubbish, but the packaging, A+. It was very, very good. Espoir came out with a really eye-catching product called the Dew Like Jello Glow Riser that really just encapsulates all the kind of things that we've been talking about. No Texture came out with a Hydra Jello Mist that sort of pumps out to Jello and turns to water, which is kind of similar, a different concept, but to our Dewy Glaze Toner. So that sort of pumps out as jelly and then melts into the skin. A Bib has their Rice Overnight Mask, which is very, very jelly-like. Mamonde has their Calming Shot Azulene Moisture Ampoule. Orencia, their Holy Hyssop Serum that you might have seen. And the thing that I found really interesting about that product is that they've actually got it in a jar. And that's not the typical packaging that you would expect for a serum-style product, but I think they were very, very purposeful with this one. And they knew that if they put it in a jar, they would get a lot more of that viral content with people sort of scooping it out of the jar and applying it to the face. And, you know, I mean, two of our products, in addition to our toner that I can think of that work really well for this is our Cherry Blossom Sleeping Mask. And I mean, that product is not a new product at all, but really that was kind of what we wanted to do, is just have this like basting, glazing moment for the skin overnight so that you would sleep with this treatment. And that texture was just worked with the concept that we were trying to convey. Our Overnight Dream Serum, which is our retinol, collagen, probiotic, hyaluronic acid serum, it has this as well. So it has this melting jelly texture, and then inside you can see very, very tiny sort of encapsulated pearls, if you will. Very, very tiny if you look closely in the formula. I noticed that Laneige has just released another serum for their Bouncy and Firm line, and that also really leans into that. It's pink and it has the encapsulated pearls inside it, which I think is just exactly what people are wanting to see. They're wanting to see all of these kind of, textures, almost edible, I guess, because it just really, really speaks to the senses. So that is what I've been noticing has really, really been trending. And I mean, it's not so dissimilar from the ASMR trend that we saw a few years ago, but I think a couple of things make this one a little bit unique, and that is that a lot of the products that I just mentioned are, again, gel-type skincare in the formulation. And gel and water in general, they're great for absorption. So, you know, people will often say, oh, it feels really watery, and watery products can penetrate deeper in the skin. That's why we use both. That's why we don't just have the thicker, creamier styles. You actually want to have a combination of both because they function differently. They sit differently. They work differently. The other thing that I've noticed is that once upon a time, the wisdom used to be in terms of gel products that they were good for summer, right? Because they're nice and lightweight, they're cooling, all of that kind of thing. They don't weigh the skin down. These days, products are being extended to all seasons. So the new releases aren't sort of leaning into this, you know, oh, I'm good in summer. It's like this has come to be something that is all year round. So I just thought that I would have a chat through this trend because I've been noticing it. I think we're going to be seeing more of it. And I think that, you know, this short form style of content that is doing really well on social media has a lot to do with all of that. I do want to have a rant at another time about some of the issues that I'm seeing, particularly with K-beauty and particularly with marketing in this style of format that I feel like is doing a real disservice to the industry, not specifically related to jelly, textured products, more broadly just in terms of K-beauty and how brands are kind of jumping on this shorter form. Let's just say I have thoughts. So I would like to table this discussion for a later date. If you also have thoughts on this issue, maybe come and find me, share your thoughts with me as well, and then we can have maybe a more nuanced discussion about it. That would actually be really good. But they're just some things that I've kind of noticed as I'm scrolling through the apps and just seeing what's around, what's trending, and all of the latest releases. So I thought I would share them with you. I hope you have enjoyed today's episode. I will be back in your ears shortly with our news roundup with a very interesting question of the week as well. So make sure that you stay subscribed to the podcast if you aren't already. If you are watching on YouTube, then hit the subscribe button as well. And until next time, I will see you on jellyco.com.